Hey guys, we're back. This time we're going to be taking a look at Planet Unknown, the deluxe edition from Adam's Apple Games. And I think I'll go through it as I go, but there's only a couple differences between the deluxe and what they call the retail, I think it's hobby edition. But we'll get into that. This is a cool space game using polyominoes, and the bottom is on upside down, where you're going to basically terraform a planet, and everybody's going to have their own planet board. And you have this cool Lazy Susan thing that you're going to be taking your tiles from, and based on where you have that rotated to, it gives the other players, they have to choose one that's in front of them. And it's a neat mechanic. Everybody plays simultaneously, so the cool thing is the game really doesn't take any longer whether you have 2 players or 5 players. And it's another one that I played down at a local game night. I watched this when it was on Kickstarter, I think it was. And for some reason I didn't back it, and I can't remember why, but I managed to track down a copy thanks to a friend who picked me up one from Gen Con. And we're going to get in and take a look. Hopefully I didn't make a mess by flipping that over, because everything in here fits kind of good. So they actually have this sits just above the lip here. I put the rule book on top to hold everything in, and then the lid holds that it nice and tight. It does have a little bit of lid lip though, even just the way it is. I did find 3D printed panels that basically snap on a little triangle here to hold these in place. Maybe doing that. I know there's some other components I want to make, but first off here we have our rule book, and mine came kind of mangled in the box. You can see the creases there, but no big deal. I think it was the humidity at Gen Con. But we have our components list here. They kind of don't, I don't think they go over exact, well, I guess they do on the shapes. They have numbers for how many there should be. And then a quick overview, game setup. It's a fairly easy to learn game, but then has some complicated options you can do in it later on, once you've got the basics down. And there's a section for optional modules in the back. Solo modes. I have not tried the solo mode yet. This is that more advanced section I was talking about. They have the asymmetrical corporations, and each one of them is different, has different abilities that unlock, and can really change things up. And there are a bunch of them. And then there's also asymmetrical planets in the back here. So you can change things up a bit too. Little glossary on the back, kind of a cheat sheet. Next thing we have is the actual Lazy Susan. You can see the tiles are already in it. This one's kind of a mixed thing, because in the original version, this was going to be in the deluxe version, not in the retail version. And then they decided it was kind of important, so they put it in both. Some people like the look of it, other people don't. They try to make it look like a space station. You really can't see because it's kind of cloudy, murky, because they made these thick. So it's nice, thick plastic. But having this outer edge transparent and this inner section gray kind of upset some people, because it makes it kind of look cheap, and I agree with that to an extent. I get why they did it, but yeah, I've seen some people paint these and they look really good. But the reason there's 2 different sections, I don't know if I can do this easily on camera. This center section actually comes out, and you can rotate it so that, like, these 2 tiles here aren't always on the same, because it goes in little like pie wedges. So you can make it so these 2 shapes aren't always the same. You take this out and you turn it, and now you have completely different combos that come up, which is kind of cool. I like that aspect of it. And of course, it does spin as a Lazy Susan. And on your turn, you're going to take turns rotating this to where you're sitting. You'll have a little marker here. And then you can choose any one you want, and you put it there, and then you get to choose from the 2 in front of you. Everybody else around the table has to choose whatever ends up in front of them. So depending on where their marker is, So the active player gets to rotate it and choose. Everybody else kind of gets stuck with what they have. So you want to pick what's best for you, what you need to do, what you want to do, but you can also kind of screw over people, especially later in the game. The game ends when somebody can't place a token. So if you know they don't have a 4 square section anywhere on their map, you can push that over to a certain player, make them take, well, they could take either of those tiles, but make them take a tile that doesn't fit on their board, end the game early. Or if you want to extend the game, you can make sure that you give them something that they can place so that it doesn't end the game. So that's cool. I like the way that works. I do agree with some of the comments about how it might look a little cheesy, but I think it's still fully functional, and I don't mind it. I wish this outer section was actually clear, though, so you could see the space station details underneath. They actually show up pretty good on the camera, I can see here, but when you look at it in real life, it's very foggy because, like I said, that's a thicker plastic, which it kind of had to do because this gets handled and moved around a lot, so it needs to be durable. Next thing we have here are our player boards. And this is one of the differences between the deluxe and the base edition. There are more of these. I think there's 6 more. So on these player boards, they're all double-sided. I don't know which ones. They have numbers on them, so I'm probably sure I could figure it out. But I don't know which ones go to the base game, which ones are from the deluxe game. But on one side of them, you have, they're all different and unique, I believe. No, they actually are in the same place. I thought maybe the drop pods were in different places. So on one side you have this basic planet. So they are all the same. So these must be the base ones. Anyway, but you have ice here, which can be used to terraform the water. These locations indicate where drop pods have landed, escape pods that you can pick up with your rovers. And then everything else is you want to fill in as many spaces in this area as you can. At the end of the game, there's these little amounts up here. I don't know if you can read them. They're kind of small. But you score for each row and column that are completely filled. So if you miss 1 square in there, you don't score that row. And there's also meteors that come down. If there's a meteor in one of the rows, you don't count that row. On the flip side of these, see, this one's all water planet. That's kind of cool. There are different planets. Each one on the flip side is unique. Some of them even have special abilities. I think the ones with the abilities might be the... I don't know, because this one has one too. This one has cities already in play, and then you get a little bonus down here. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, each one of these has, like I said, a matching one on one side and a unique one on the other. This one has this cool wind zone where everything that's in this zone has to also anchor onto something that's not in the zone. But again, they add a lot of variety to the game. A lot of replayability just in the base game alone. But I'm very fortunate to have access to the deluxe edition to get all the extra planets. I'm going to show all of them real quick. This one has like holes in it, like Swiss cheese. So you have to work around these holes. You can't fill those in. This one has 3 smaller planets. Now this one has walls. If I recall, I don't think something can go... No, there's a restricted. You can't put a specific type of tile in each section. There's a restricted where you can't put them. Then we have that one. That one's interesting. I'm not sure what that one is. You have to slide your tiles into place, so it's like playing Tetris. Haven't used the flip sides on a lot of these yet. Oh, there's a hole in the middle, like a donut. And then the black hole. This one's actually the opposite. Instead of putting them on the planet, you put them around the gravity well there. And then there, you have ice in the corners for your water. Now, all these components, well, at least the trays and stuff, I believe come with both versions of the game. I am not positive, but you have plenty of score sheets. I did learn from someone a great idea to do with these kind of games is to take one of these score sheets, laminate it, and then you can use a dry erase marker. But this has a nice little slot on here to store these. Not that you're going to need both pads, at least not for a while. There's a lot there. So we're going to get into these storage trays. And I don't know which one I'm going to go through first. Let's go through this one first. These are actual game trays, I believe. Nice, thicker plastic. They're on the thinner side, but they're thick enough they're going to last. It's not that normal cheap insert plastic. Nice lids. I think the lids are actually thicker than the bottom trays. And in this lid, of course, or this tray, of course, you're going to get glare because I sleeved these already. But we have biomass tokens, so these are used basically to fill in little holes on your board. You get them from moving up the biomass tracker, which we'll go over in a minute when I get to the player boards. These are the meteors, and this is a deluxe component. I believe these are wooden discs in the hobby edition, but these are going to come down and take up spaces on tiles that have the little meteor icon. So whenever you put one of these on your planet, you're going to put one of these tokens on top of it, and then they can be picked up with the rovers, and they count as points at the end of the game. They also block you from scoring one of those rows or columns as long as they're in place. So you want to get rid of those as quick as you can. There is a tech I think you can upgrade at one point that makes it so no more meteors come. This is actually where there's these little tokens. You'll see in here the little triangle tokens. They're supposed to store them in there, but I think this works out better. I know I rearranged things a little bit, but these are extras because a couple of the asymmetrical corporations get some oddball stuff, so they have extra escape pods and extra rovers in there. You have your wooden first player token, and I can't remember what that token's for. I'm drawing a blank, but that one's underneath there. Those are wood. Up here we have cards I'm going to throw all over. So up here we have these cards, and these are going to be used as an event deck for the game. You mix and match the different colors of them are different difficulties based on how hard you want to make your game. There's a chart in the book, wherever the book went, that explains how to build that deck to get the most out of it. And there's a nice variety of those in different things that they do. These are upside down. And they're just events that are going to take place that affect everyone that kind of screw with the course of the game. Also should point out the trays here have this neat recessed ledger on them, so to get the decks out you can just push down on them. No more digging to get that bottom card out of the tray, which I like that design. On our other tray here we have the player pieces in here, and these are done up for each of the players. I've seen people do these differently, but this is how it works best for me. Everything you need to play a person is in here, so you pick a color, you grab everything out of there. You've got your 2 rovers, which these do come in the hobby version, the base retail version of the game, little 3 rovers. And they're going to drive around picking up your escape pods, picking up the meteors, and kind of scoring you points. And then you have one of each color cube in there, which are going to be used on your tech trackers. And then you have your 6 escape pods that are going to be on your planet. And then you have these 2 tokens. I believe I know one of them goes over here to say this is your wedge of the board. I believe the second one is actually made to go on the player boards up here, so you can designate which players, which color. We never used the second one, so. Off to the side here we have the civilization cards, so as you move up your civ tech tree, you're going to unlock these. And they're first come, first serve. They're level 1 through level 4. And there's a set amount that's put into play. I think it's 1 more than the number of players. So there's a limited amount of them available. On the other side here, we have the objective cards. And these are going to be set to private or public. So on one side you have private objectives. On this side there's a public objective, or neighbor objective they call it. And this is going to go in between two players. So the player to the left, the player to the right compete for this. Then there's going to be another one on this side. So this player here and the player to their left is going to compete. So you always have two, but your two are going to be different than everybody else. Well, at least one of your two is going to be different than everybody else's two. And they're just little secret things you're going for. Like in this case, create a 3x3 area of civ terrain. On the flip side, you have the most civ resources on the edge of your planet, so on the outer ring. And then there's a win point or a tie. On this side, there's just a complete bonus. So those are kind of neat. We have not played with those yet. Our next game, I'm planning on doing it. We played to learn the basics real quick. Very simple game with none of the extras, but that is definitely something I'm looking forward to adding into our game. I like the concept of them. I like having to compete, because you might not want to put the exact optimal placement of some stuff if it means you can score one of these objectives. So it's a trade-off. You have to figure that out if it's worth it for you. The next thing we have down here are the player boards. And these, again, there are extra of, because this is the deluxe edition. You do not get as many in the normal retail. And they are really nice triple layer cardboard here, because they're indented. There you go. You can see if I get the light on it right. So when you put the cubes on here, they don't get bumped very easily, because you're going to put those colored cubes across these different tech trees here. And every time you play a tile, you're going to advance the tech trees of whatever's on there. So in this case, you have a tech here, so that's going to go up one. You have biomass here, that's going to go up one. And every time you place a tile, you are going to move up the whatever's on that tile. The only exception to that is the water terrain. When you do the water, this has to touch ice somewhere on your planet in order to move up the water tech tree. There are other ways to move up the water tech tree to make up for that later. Then on here, every time you hit one of these benchmarks where you see an icon, something's going to happen. Like in the case of the rover, as soon as you hit the first one here, you're going to place a rover. Then every other time after that, you're going to move rovers equal to that. Eventually, up here somewhere, you're going to get... Where's the second rover? I don't know where the second rover is. Oh, I'm looking at a custom side of the board. That's why. Let's look at the generic side of the board here. So there, you're going to start with one rover, and you get up to here, you're going to add a second rover. Once you have a second rover, you can split this. So you have two movement. You can move one of them two, you can move each of them one, and so on. Other things you get off these trees, in this case, these spiral here, will allow you to move up any color tech one extra space. Those are kind of cool, because you can combo them off. Like if you had one here, you move this up to there. All right, I get my free move, I move this one up to here. Well, now I hit another one, so now I can move something else up one. It's kind of a neat thing you can set up to combo off. The actual tech tree here, when you get to these levels, they unlock the corresponding bonus abilities over here. On the generic side of the board you got here, they're all going to be the same. On the flip side, where you have specific companies here, they are going to be unique to those companies, and all of these are different. These trees are also different on them, obviously. Other ones you have here are biomass, so you get these little tree things here. Every time you get to one of those, you're going to get one of these biomass tokens. Eventually, originally you have to place them immediately when you get them. There is a tech over here, I think it's the first one, second one. It allows you to store them up, and you basically set them off to the side, and at the end of the game you can use them to fill in holes. That's a really nice one to have. Any of the coins you see on here, when you get to them, you're going to score the highest one that you've passed. So if you're all the way up here, you don't look at this one, you don't look at this one, you're going to score whatever this one is here. I don't think water has anything special on it. And then Civ, every time you get to one of these civilization markers, you're going to draw one of those Civ cards. Well, actually, you don't draw, you pick one. So first come, first serve. If you're the first person there, you pick up the deck, you look through, you find the one you want, you take that. Put the rest of them back for the other players. So it's first come, first serve to get the ones you want. Someone might take the one you want. You might have to be forced to pick a lesser one. And then they continue up. There's a level 2, a level 3, and a level 4 up there. And again, each of these scoring goes up. The higher up you go, the more points you score. It's hard to get this on camera because of the angle. But like if you get the water one all the way up to here, you can score 10. If you get it to there, you only score 7. And so on down the line. Up here is where you're going to put your escape pods when you rescue an escape pod with one of your rovers. It goes in there, and you'll score points for those at the end of the game. Some of the corporations, I believe, actually have an ability where you can sacrifice them to do something as well. And then this section up here is for the meteorites. As your rovers pick up those meteorites, they're going to be putting them up here. And every 3 of those scores points at the end of the game, unless you have an objective or something that changes that. I also didn't mention the escape pods. The little 3D escape pod tokens are for the deluxe edition. They are wooden, I think, hexagon cylinder type things. But they're wooden tokens in the normal version of the game. But again, like I said, all of these player boards, you have enough to play. I think the game officially supports 5 players. Oh, 6 players. So the base game comes with 6 of them. After that, you get extra ones from the deluxe edition, which, like I said, these flip sides have different companies on them. The one side's Universal. The other side is corporate. Each of the corporations is different, and each of them has weird special rules that go with it. One of my only complaints about this, and it seems to happen in a lot of games nowadays, when they make these components, I love the triple layer boards, because, yeah, they have those indented squares on both sides, so they're 3 layers thick. A lot of games these days seem to have this problem where, I don't know if the dies they use to cut these are dull, which you can see along the edges. They're already kind of worn and chipped, and they look used, basically, but brand new coming from the factory this way. My Twilight Imperium was the same way, and those came on actual punch boards, and you had to punch them out, and they still look like that. So it's a common issue. I'm not sure what the cause of it is, but my only real complaint about this. But I do like the asymmetrical corporations and the fact that everything changes up a little. I have not played enough. We've only played, I think, 1 game using the asymmetrical sides. I got to play a lot more. I want to try all the different companies, but I can't say if they are balanced or not. So I want to play more games and try more of those. Can't get the last ones out here. Oops. So there's, yeah, our stack of player boards. So yeah, Horizon Group, Flux Industries, Makeshift, Cosmos Inc., Wormhole Corp., Jump Drive, Republic, and Oasis Unlimited. I think that's what that is. But, and again, they're all normal on one side. They're all the same. On the flip side, they're all unique. Same with the planets. So you can level the playing field, or you can kind of stagger it up. And I'm very eager to see more games with the asymmetrical stuff to see how that plays out. The last thing in here is just a little bit of an insert. Even this is made of nice, this is thick plastic, not that really flimsy stuff. I have seen a lot of people remove this. See, it has, again, that lip so you can push down on the corner to pull things up. But because the game has a slight bit of lid lift, a lot of people I've seen have left this out, and that extra little bit, you know, from the indentation here that it drops down makes the game lid fit a little more flush. I haven't really looked into it that much to see if it's worth doing for myself, but it's something I will look into. Let's see if I can get it back in here the correct way this time so it's not upside down. But yeah, that's a look at everything that comes in here. I'll do a quick clip on how gameplay works, and then I'll give you my final thoughts. This is how we have it set up for a basic 4-player game. The fourth player's off the screen up there. But we have our player board in front of us. We're the captain. So as the captain, you get to rotate the station to whatever facing you like. But when it stops, you have to choose from the two that you end up in front of you. Everybody else will have to choose from the two that are in front of them. And all the play is done simultaneously. So you find where you want to go. You're going to take your tile from here, and again that locks the other players into where they have to take from. And your first token has to go with the at least one edge of it touching the outer edge of your board. And then from then on, anything you place will have to connect onto an existing piece on your board. There is a tech that allows you to break that rule later on, but for now, that's what you're going to go. So in this case, we have a sieve and a bio on there. So we're going to put this here. We're going to advance, see if we can see, yeah, it's on the camera there. We're going to advance our sieve up by 1 notch and our bio up by 1 notch. Everybody else is going to take their turn, do their thing. Then we'll pass the station commander clockwise to the next person. They'll get to adjust this to wherever they want, take theirs. We're stuck with the two that are left in front of us. Let's go one more here just to say, for example, we got this here. There are some special rules on some of the tiles. In this case, we have water. In order to move up the water track, we need to place water tiles so that at least one of them are touching ice. You can see these ice tracks on our planet. This one we can do by placing it here. Since we placed the water over the ice, we could advance our water track. And the other one on that one was a rover. So we can advance our rover track, which uncovers our first rover. We get to place our rover anywhere on the red or rover section of that tile. There's only one on this one, so we will put it there. From now on, we can start moving our rover around to try to pick up these escape pods and or meteors as they come out. So now everybody's taking that. This is going to go on to the next player, and so on around the table. Again, they're going to keep rotating this, and we're going to choose from the two that are in front of us. When it comes back to our turn, we can choose any of them again. So in this case, try something different here. So this one's unique. We have civic in here, but we also have energy, and energy is different than all the other ones in that it mimics, basically it's a wild card. It can copy anything that it's adjacent to. So in this case, we could use civ twice because we have civ here, and this could copy the civ, or depending on where we're putting it, we can put it next to our biomass, copy our biomass again, next to the water to copy the water. And then it also has a meteor on here. So wherever we put this, I'll probably say we'll put it this way, right there. That gives us the most options. So we're going to move up our sieve no matter what. So siev's going to go up one. I think we're going to copy the sieve so that we can move our sieve up again, which unlocks our first sieve card on there. But before we're done there, we got to take our meteor token and place it there. Now we can pick those up with our rovers. They're going to go up here, and they're worth 1 point for every 3 of those we pick up at the end of the game. The other thing to keep in mind is that as long as there's a meteor here, we cannot score this column here. We cannot score this row here, so we need to clear that off because it counts as a empty space, basically. But because we're the first player to fill in our sieve up here, we're going to get one of our sieve cards. And so in our sieve deck here, there's going to be 1 card more than the number of players, and they're first come, first serve. So you get to pick. There are more of these than you'll need, so you're not going to get the same ones every game. In this case, we have gain 1 biomass patch, which are these little 1x1 squares, great for filling in holes. We've got advanced 2 different tracker trays, so we can move 2 of these up 1. That's kind of a good one. Advance any 1 tracker twice. That one's pretty good too. Or gain 4 rover movement. So we could use our rover, move 4 squares, go over here, like pick up that escape pod. Or take a tile from your depot and place it, but do not advance the resources. Basically, it fills in a little bit more of your board. That one's kind of neat. We could use that. I think just for this example, though, we're going to do the 2 different trackers once. So we take that, put that down with our player board. That's no longer available to the other players. And we get to move up our trackers. And we'll move up our tech. And water seems to be a difficult one to move up, so we'll get that up. It also gets us near these. In fact, instead of the water, if we move up the... It's really hard to see these on camera, but if we move up the biomass, the next one on there is a free movement of any color. So we can move up the biomass by 1, and then we get a free one, and then we can move up the water still. So that works out even better. Little combos like that you can do and set up for, which is kind of neat. But play's going to continue that way. You're going to be drafting your tokens from in front of you until your turn comes around. In this case, we've got tech and a rover. And we can slot this in right here. The other thing to keep in mind is that on either side of you here, you have these objective cards. In this case, we want to have the least amount of civ resources on our planet. We get some extra points for that. On this side, we've got have the least biomass resources on the planet. So we got 2 of the least ones. That one's kind of sucks because we're probably going to end up with one or the other. So you're paying attention to what your opponents are doing and trying to keep that in mind as well. They are worth only a couple extra points. I wish they were worth more because they force you to kind of play unoptimally because you're trying to do those things, in which case you might leave a hole in a row or a column, which is going to cost you points. And some of these bigger rows, I think the middle ones here are 3, the second one's out of 2. So you could be losing more points than you gain. So you have to keep that in mind on those. But again here, just for example, we got these 2. So we're going to move up our tech by 1, which gives us a free point to spend on any color. We're going to move up our rover by 1, which gives us 1 rover movement. So we can move our rover by 1. Then we have an extra point we want to spend. We can spend it in water here. Move that up. Now we have another free point on there, which we can use to move something else up. So you can see how they combo. We'll move tech up again, which unlocks our first tech ability here, which removes the restriction where our tiles have to touch each other. So that's pretty cool. Now we can put them anywhere on our board. That's a great one to unlock. These are on the generic side, of course. On the individual corporation side, each one of these techs is different, so you have to keep that in mind. But yeah, that's pretty much how the game works. It goes until someone cannot place a tile. Any of the ones that are chosen in front of them cannot be placed without overlapping or going out of bounds or something like that. In that case, they still get the effects of whatever tile it is that they drew, but that triggers the end of the game. Everybody finishes that round, and then we see where we go from there. You score each column and row on your planet that is completely filled. You're going to score the highest number of metals. I can pick this up without dumping it. On your track trays here, you can see there's these metals. You'll score the highest one that you are on or past, but not, so if you're up here, you're not going to score all of these, you just score the highest one. And then finally, you'll score points up here for all of the escape pods. If you manage to pick one of these up with your rover, they go up here. You'll score points for each of those, and then for every 3 meteors that you've recovered up here. Then you score any additional points from any civ cards that you have, and then any from the objectives that are in play. Player with the highest score wins, and that's pretty much the basics of Planet Unknown. So that's everything in Planet Unknown. I think it's a really good game. I looked forever to find the deluxe edition, but as I mentioned earlier, there really isn't a whole lot of difference. A couple of the plastic components are replaced with wooden tokens. No big deal. The big thing for me was the 2 extra player boards and the, I think it's 6 extra planets or something like that, that have those unique planet types on the back. And that's really what made me interested in that version. It's not that big of a deal if you don't end up getting the deluxe edition. If you end up with the retail edition, They do sell player mats of the planets, and I believe those come with the extra planets, so you're only missing out on those two corporation boards, which I'm sure they're going to find some way to get to you somehow. We'll see, maybe a con exclusive or something. But as far as the game goes, I really like the game. A couple of things worth mentioning though is that the box, no matter what, does not actually close all the way. Everything still sticks up just a hair. When you first get it, when the punch boards and everything in there, this top of the box sits up a good inch or two, which is kind of funny. But underneath here, they could have made the box slightly larger. I think they went with the standard size, which is fine, but their Lazy Susan is just a hair too big. And maybe if it was a little bit smaller, but it actually bows out the edges of your box. And I don't know if you can see it on video there, but it actually damages the inside of the box all the way around because it rubs. And it's not a huge issue, but yeah, a little bit smaller probably would have taken care of that. As far as the height wise goes, though, I believe that was intentional because this needs to stay snug something up against the top of this. Otherwise, if you stand your box up on the end, all these tokens are going to fall out of the trays. So there's that, and I'm sure that was part of it. But yeah, it sticks up just a hair above the lip of the box here. I keep the manual over the top, the box on top of that, and I do store mine vertical, and it's worked so far. But just keep in mind that there will be a little bit of lid left on there. I did try 3D printing these covers, and they will do the trick. They kind of sit on here. I was kind of disappointed in the fact that they just sit on, though. They don't actually snap into place. So I did not end up printing more of them because, honestly, putting the rulebook over it does the exact same thing. And I did see the couple that brought this to our game night had, I'm not sure, but it's a like the stretch Tupperware container covers, and it stretched over the top, and that seemed to work to hold everything in there. But I haven't had any problem with just doing the manual on top there. So to be honest, that's got to be the only complaint I have of the game. That and the availability of the deluxe edition. Hopefully the retail version will be out soon if it's not already by the time you see this video. But tracking down the deluxe copy, they've been going around to cons with it. That's how I managed to get mine. But hopefully you can find one if you're interested. If not, like I said, you're not missing out on too much just getting the normal retail version. So keep that in mind. I think it's definitely worth picking up either way. I love the game. I love the concept of it. I love the simultaneous play. When you see a big game like this, you think, oh God, it's going to take forever, especially when it plays 6+ players. And it doesn't. The player count does not affect the length of the game. Honestly, I think the single player version, because there's some more stuff you got to do, is longer than the rest. But when you're playing 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 players, the game length stays relatively the same. And that's a really cool concept. I love that playing at the same time aspect of it. And there is some strategy in there too, because when it's your turn, especially late in the game, you can look at your opponent's boards and decide where you're going to rotate the station to, because you can force the game to end soon by making someone give choices of something they can't place. Or you can lengthen the game by making sure that they can pick something, and that's something kind of neat. But you can also see, the guy next to you that you're competing with is going for having the largest amount of biomass on his planet. So you can purposely rotate it so that whenever it's your turn to choose, you can set it so that he doesn't get biomass as a choice. Things like that you can keep in mind. There's a lot of strategy there, a lot of take that type things, but nothing direct. And that's kind of a cool thing. In the end, though, you are playing kind of a solo game with multiple people, and that's something to keep in mind if it's not something you're interested in. You have your own workspace, and you really, other than rotating the station, can't interact with the other players. They get what they get. It's kind of a race, which I personally don't mind, but some people might not like that concept. Doesn't bother me. The whole thing is basically a race. You're in a race to get to the civilization so you can draw those cool civ cards and get the better options. Like there's one that gives you just straight up 2 points at the end of the game. Well, there's just another one in that same deck that only gives you 1 point. And people always ask, why would I ever take the one for 1 point over the 2 point? Well, the first person might take the 2 point one. Now you're forced to take the 1 point one because the 2 point one's gone. So there's that aspect of it, but I really do like the game. I like everything about it. And I'm kind of sad that I didn't back it originally. I think it would ended up being a money issue or something. But I'm glad that I got it now, and can't wait to get it to the table more often. And definitely recommend it if you're into this kind of game. That's going to wrap it up for our look at Planet Unknown. Again, I hope it helps you decide if it's something you'd be interested in. Let me know down in the comments. As always, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.